I mean, FIDE was basically trying to, because, I wanted to have the cameras on my stream like I always have in the past. FIDE wanted me to, they wanted me to be involved with the event. As soon as Emil made his demands, and I thought they were ridiculous because he was unwilling to negotiate on anything whatsoever, it was his way or the highway, then I wasn't part of the event. Because that was, of course, mostly part of the agreement. So like that from my standpoint was the first thing, and then of course they took my name off and they, of course, I will also say it's very clear there's been a bit of a shadow ban too, where they're intentionally not featuring me whatsoever. Magnus are still doing it because he's Magnus, but in my case it's intentional. They're definitely not featuring me on purpose. I think ultimately my view of the whole situation is that there should be a world where players are able to play in events they want to, without having to worry about retribution. That's the first thing I would say. Obviously I haven't seen what Magnus said in that interview, but I would also say, that I think these things regarding dress code, the sooner that chess moves into the 21st century and we don't try to portray this fake image of these great geniuses who never say bad things, who like keep all their emotions aside, they're gentlemanly like it's the 1600s, the sooner we get past all this nonsense, the better off chess is going to be. I think it's an antiquated view that is really out of sorts, and out of place. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind. I think the notion of like fining people, it's really comical to me that FIDE tries to enforce this dress code because the reality for chess is that most of the players who are competing in this tournament outside of the top 10, they're paying an arm and a leg and a kidney to play in this tournament. There's expensive travel is very expensive, hotels are very expensive. All this stuff is definitely it definitely adds up. And so it's kind of funny that FIDE is trying to say you have to wear all these dress clothes, go out, spend money, wear nice clothes, and sort of perpetrate this fake image when basically you're struggling just to make a living and FIDE is not doing anything to support you. I frankly think that as far as Magnus goes specifically, I don't think there's a single player at the playing venue who's going to not watch the event, or online for that matter, who's not going to watch the event because Magnus is playing in jeans or his underwear, or I don't know, Speedo, like God knows like what the options are. But I don't think there's a single person in the world who cares about that at all. They want to see Magnus Carlsen play chess. He's the best player in the world, and that's that. That's what they want to see. The push comes to shove. I think players are going to have a choice to make, and we'll see what they ultimately choose to do. But at the end of the day, it really is about the chess. People are here to watch the chess. They're not here for all this nonsense, or at least most people aren't. And I just think it's really a tragedy that we're dealing with this, because this could have very easily have been avoided. If FIDE wasn't so insane, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, as it relates specifically to this, I think, we're both at a point in our career where we're looking at the bigger picture of what we can do with the time that we have left, if I'm being frank, to try and push us in a direction that we think is good, in the long term. And I think so. So for me, when I look at the whole thing, I think that Magnus views this as the future, maybe not freestyle necessarily, but I think the future of trying to have something which can be sustainable. Again, I will say this as well. What I would say about this is that is that the current model for FIDE is basically, you try to find a sponsor, someone who, for their own reasons, wants to be very philanthropic and support chess and not get anything in return. That is a model that we've seen in chess for probably the better part, I would say 50 years. You've had many individuals who have done great things trying to support the game, but ultimately we always live in a world where as soon as someone passes on or loses interest in chess, everything dries up. A good example, of course, would be the Amber tournaments, which occurred in Monte Carlo for the better part of, I think, 20 years. The Rapid and Blindfold Melody Amber event, and as soon as I think the sponsor unfortunately had a stroke and he was unable to be directly involved, the event folded overnight. And we've lived in this world for so long now that to me, we're in the new age where there is a lot of interest in chess. You have a lot of fans on the street who are interested, who want autographs and pictures and everything else. And I think there's a big appetite to watch it, especially on the internet. versus say linear television. And so I think what Magnus thinks is that, if you have a more engaged audience, you can sort of make the players look exciting. You have exciting games where you don't get 6-hour draws. There's potential to make chess bigger than it currently is. And whether or not that's the case down the road, who knows? But I think Magnus trying to do this is ultimately a good thing. I think it's a great thing that he's trying to do this. I think that it's very clear now that there's basically going to be a war. I think there's zero doubt in my mind that that Magnus is going to play the freestyle events. FIDE is going to basically change their words on some level, and they're going to say, look, players have to pick and choose. I could give. I could give even more tea, perhaps. About financial.
But Hikaru, then, if it has happened before, why don't the players work together in order to make sure that the rules that are deemed silly are changed?
Yeah, I think that's a very very good question. I would say that in my opinion, the problem is that chess is a zero-sum game, and I think I sort of speak in terms of chess across the board, not just in terms of playing. But the problem with chess ultimately is that when you play the game, we're all on good terms with each other, but it is zero sum. Someone wins and someone loses. And I think that because everybody has that mindset and mentality, it's very, very difficult to sort of get the players to agree on things. Now, I would say that if you had the top 25 players in the world all agree on something like this, FIDE would be unable to hold this tournament because it would be a complete disaster. The sponsors wouldn't be interested. Ultimately, they want to see the best players in the world competing. It's not about the clothes that they wear. And so for me, I think it's unfortunate this hasn't happened already, but considering what's going on now, I think we're in a world where there's a very good chance that the players are going to have to pick and choose tournaments between supporting FIDE or going their own way and playing the freestyle. And the only thing that I would say that really I find very disappointing about this whole thing is that I'll spill a little bit more tea here, which is that I had some conversations and I already felt that something was wrong with when I saw the statement that came out by Jan-Henrik Buettner, and then I saw what Arkady Dvorkovich tweeted. It was sort of very clear to me that FIDE was biding their time without making a clear decision, and I sort of told Henrik and Magnus this, that I thought that it was very, very questionable going along with this because I didn't trust FIDE whatsoever, and now, as we see, everything's kind of blowing up immediately. And I think that it's we have a brave new world coming, where I think that Magnus will try and do his own thing. I think there are other players who are also going to be in that same boat. As I said to Magnus about a week ago, I would reiterate this again, that at the end of the day, if push comes to shove, I will ultimately choose to play in the freestyle events and what it stands for, as opposed to trying to qualify for the candidates or play the world championship. At the end of the day, maybe it's a good thing this happened and everything's out there in the open now, and we'll see what we get. But I think it's definitely a momentous day, because I think that from Magnus' standpoint, there's no coming back. I do not think he'll play another FIDE tournament ever again. I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to play another FIDE tournament ever again. I don't think there's a world where that happens.